Welcome back to my channel. I'm Maggie Ostara, and I'm delighted that you're here. Today, we're going to talk about the human design transit that begins on Friday, June 7th. And we've got a really potent gates for the sun and the earth. Plus, we have some channels lit up. So let's go ahead and dive in. So you can see from the images here that we've got that 1648, which is a big theme for the whole month of June. Go and check out the major themes transit report if you haven't seen it already, because we've got this here. But the other thing that's happening is we now also have the 4521 that's being lit up. It's the leadership channel of tribal circuitry. And it's because that the sun is in the gate 45 that this is lit up. So let's talk about the 45 first, and then we're going to come back to that whole channel. So the gate 45 is known as the king or queen gate, the monarch, or the sovereign in traditional human design. And it's been renamed distribution in quantum human design. So it is here on the throat. Like I said, it is a leadership energy. It is like the sovereign, right? And its shadow is the dictator, okay, or authoritarianism. But its really highest expression is this sense of distribution, this sense of being a benevolent, compassionate, caring leader who is focused on making sure that people have what they need. So it goes into shadow when we try to gain a sense of power, but through control and manipulation of resources in particular. And so that's when we get into a lot of shadow material. The disempowered aspect of the 45 is when we reject leadership. We just basically are like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. People do this in response to dictatorship and authoritarianism because they're like, I don't want to be that thing, right? So I'm not going to take on leadership. You know, it happens for people. But really, the invitation here is for us to step into this sense of community, because it's tribal energy. So it's really a lot about community. It's a lot about our relationships. And we get to look at, well, how am I being sovereign in my life? Right? Am I in charge of my life, or am I giving my power away to other people? Right? Or am I trying to assert my power over other people so that I can feel more safe and secure, which is also an aspect of that shadow of the 45. So the 45 can be a really beautiful energy, but it has been manipulated and distorted a lot historically. So my invitation to you is to really just think for yourself, like, how can I step into my sovereignty even more? And you can always check out my book on feminine sovereignty, 8 Pillars for Rejuvenating Ourselves and Our World. And it will lead you on a step-by-step path for how to really build your power within so that you can be strong and resilient and secure on the inside. Then you can spiral out into the world with other people. And when you build that power on the inside, then you don't feel the need to control and manipulate others because you already have that power inside of you. So go check out the book if you want to. I'd love to hear how it lands for you as you're reading it. That'd be great. But let's notice here that the mate of the 45 is also lit up. So we've got the 21, which is on the will center that's down here. And the 21 and the 45 create what in traditional human design is called the money line. And in quantum human design, it's called sustainability or sustainable resources. I like to call it distribution because it is about our ability to, yes, be sustainable, but to be equitable in our distribution. So in traditional human design, it's called the money line because the gate 21 in traditional human design is about managing resources. When it was introduced to me originally, it was kind of like the CEO gate or the project management gate. It was the person who was really taking a look at what all the resources are and tracking them and making sure that we have enough for everyone. Because again, it's like tribal circuitry, right? And then it's going to be distributed by that sovereign, right? So if you think about a feudal society, you might have a monarch, but then you would have a steward who was in charge of the manor. Okay, so if we just think of this as tribal, feudal in the past, it's still the same application in this time where we're evolving this out of a feudal society, but we're still looking at how are we stewarding our resources, and then how are we distributing our resources. And this is a vital question for us these days, because we have been, as a culture, have been eating up the world's resources very, very rapidly in, the last 500 years in particular, but then more recently a lot. And this is something we all know. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but a lot of times we don't pay that much attention to it. And so it's important for us to really be kind of going, how are we stewarding our resources? Are we just, barreling through and we're just going to use up all the oil that is left on the planet? Or are we going to leave some of it in the ground, which would really be much better given climate change, just as an example. But we also want to steward our own personal resources. We want to steward the resources of our communities. We want to look at the resources of our world. And so this whole channel is about that. It's about stewarding resources and looking at how we're distributing them. And it's become abundantly clear that we as a humanity do not distribute resources in an equitable way. And in fact, in the last 40 years, certainly here in the United States, but I think certainly in Western Europe, we've seen a dramatic rise of resources into a very small group of people, a very elite and small group of people who are becoming wealthier and wealthier and managing more and more of the world's resources. So we're at a time where we're taking a look at this and going, wait a minute, maybe that isn't so much the way that we should operate. Maybe we really need to redo this. So there's two parts of this. One has to do with how people are responding to people. And so when we're looking at this at the money line, like I said, this comes out of a kind of feudal, often not very benevolent royalty and aristocracy. And we're evolving the vestiges of that we have in our contemporary world so that we can then distribute things in a more equitable way. And I think we also need to move beyond an idea of sustainable resources to regeneration, because we can't sustain things at the level we're currently at. We actually have to change how much we're using resources, and we have to change the kind of resources that we're using. And a lot of that requires us to have a regenerative point of view, which says humanity has to get involved in how are we helping our world heal and recover from the way that we have overused a lot of our resources. We can't just be like, okay, let's just not use so much of them and just stay at this place. Like, that's not going to be enough. We actually are going to need to change a lot of this. So while this particular channel is lit up, we'll have extra energy as we're leaning into this particular challenge. And so my invitation to you is just really take a look at this for yourself. You can look at your own energy footprint. You can look at your own use of power, whether that is electricity in your home or gas in your home or gas in your car or electricity in your car, or any other resources that you're using as well. If you travel a lot, what you use for clothing, where your clothing is coming from, how much you're importing things. Like there's a lot of ways to kind of look at how sustainable and how regenerative is my use of resources. And you can choose to make a change, right? You can choose to make a change, just starting with small things initially, but then they can get bigger and bigger as you become more aware of what's possible. And as your heart opens even more to your role as a steward of the planet, and you're making a contribution that really supports all of us. You'll also note with this channel, 4521 that we're having a motorized throat and a defined will center. So most of us have an open will center, so we will be experiencing more of this willpower. And it's a great opportunity to rise up your sense of worthiness and your sense of personal value while this is being lit up and it's being defined by this particular channel. Because then if you can get that stronger, even after the transit changes, you can have more of a chance of imprinting yourself with that increased sense of worthiness and personal value. The other is that motorized throat is going to give us more ability to manifest and to activate. So we really want to be able to be on purpose and be in our integrity as we're utilizing that energy. And then the Earth is going to move into the gate 26 with this transit, which is also very interesting. So the gate 26 is also on the will center. So I was talking about the 21, which is on the will center, and then also the gate 26. This is also tribal circuitry. It's in the commerce circuit or the community circuit of the tribal circuit. And it's known in traditional human design as the gate of the trickster, and in quantum human design, the gate of integrity. Now, I think of this as a highly enrolling energy. It's also known as the gate of sales, part of the channel of sales, but really it's persuasive and it's enrolling. So it could be sales, right? It could be inviting someone to purchase from you, to purchase products or services or whatever it might be. But it also can be about inviting people in and enrolling them in an idea or a project. So we were just talking a moment ago about creating a more regenerative point of view, a more regenerative way of using our resources. So it could be really in enrolling people into a more regenerative way of living, which would be awesome. So take a look at that for yourself and be like, what is it that I would want to enroll people into that would be for the highest good of all? Now, the thing about the 26, and this is the reason it's called the trickster, is its shadow is, it's kind of like that used car salesperson, right? It's the person who acts out of integrity, and they're going to want to enroll you in something where they're going to benefit and you're going to lose, right? So we want to be aware of that because unfortunately, some people do that. You know, there are schemes that happen out there. So we want to watch out for that. And I think that people embodying that really shadow part of the 26 is what makes a lot of us kind of, anxious and uncomfortable around what we consider to be salespeople. I always like to remember that, people don't like to be sold to, but many people like to buy. So it's not that commerce is bad or that sales is bad or anything like that. It's all about how we do it, right? Does it have swarmy energy or is it clean? Is it in the highest good of everyone involved? That's always how I hold it. So we want to ground ourselves in this sense of integrity around our ability to enroll other people in our projects, in our ideas, in what we think is important to happen in our world, like becoming more regenerative. And so we want to ground ourselves in that, even as we are expressing our sovereign energy that has to do with the equitable distribution of resources that's also being supported by that gate of stewardship. When we act with integrity, alignment with our highest values, alignment with what our hearts call for, alignment with what we know is to be right. When we act in this way, we become very magnetic. And I really want to encourage you to utilize that during this time as we are helping all of us to evolve out of the vestiges of the past that have pitted us against one another into a more cooperative way of being. And that's what we can do with that 45 as well. And if you find yourself kind of falling into old patterns, into old stuckness, you can also call on that 1648 that's over here, especially with that south node lighting up the 48, which is about burning up karma, burning up negative thought forms and patterns of the past. So we start to see how the different aspects of the chart start to work together. And you're invited to come to Ask me anything. This is an event that I do every few months in my Quantum Retreat Center. And I invite you to come if you have a question about your human design in general, about feminine sovereignty and your relationship to feminine sovereignty, your own evolutionary journey. I'm happy to connect with you and support you however I can. So it's happening on June 18th. You do have to come into the Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center in order to participate. I invite you to do so, and then go ahead and post your question, and we'll chat. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.